Hi guys, this is Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor and your leverage for change. So today I'm going to kind of continue with the series I've been doing on the different attachment styles, and knowing that the secure attachment style is really the ideal attachment style. Not that they don't have problems themselves, guys, and especially when they're in situations and relationships with the other attachment styles that are really problematic. But they have the best chance of really monitoring their emotional state, their mental state, and their behavior to really have better relationships. So today I'm going to be speaking about the anxious preoccupied individual. And when dating this individual, what are the questions that you need to ask yourself to determine whether or not this is a relationship that you can be happy in? Because when it all comes down to it, guys, you don't want to go into a relationship that you're going to have that's going to be toxic for you, or is going to be problematic for you, and there's just always a kind of a push and pull and this fighting, constant kind of a toxicity building up in your relationship. So you have to determine whether you are able to be in a relationship with this individual with the anxious preoccupied attachment style. Now remember, guys, that everything is always on a continuum, so nothing is set in stone. So therefore you have to understand that some of these might apply to the person you're dating, or it may not, okay? And it can also be at different levels. So what are the core wounds? Just kind of quickly going over the core wounds of someone with the anxious preoccupied attachment style. The biggest fear is a fear of abandonment, because as a child they had kind of a not a very strong connection, or a strong they depended on of course, as a child you're depending on your caregivers to be there for you, but because of there's kind of a like, sometimes they were and sometimes they weren't, for whatever reasons. That could be that one person is a single mother, could be that it's that one parent is warm and accommodating and loving, the other one is distant and cold and really has nothing to do with the child, right? Or it could be that something happened in the relationship where maybe it's a death, and they just did not have that emotional capacity to give at that time, to give what the child needed to feel secure, right? Could be that the passing of, could be a child, another child, or a parent, or somebody close in the family. And so there are different reasons, guys. Not everything is the fault of the parents or the caregivers. Sometimes it's the circumstances that happened, right, that caused these things to happen. But the fact is that the person with the anxious, the person who grows up to have this attachment style, never felt the attention and the love was inconsistent. And so they never really, but they had enough love and attention to kind of crave it and wait for it, but it was and so they never quite learned to self-soothe, as is the case with the dismissive avoidant, who learned to self-soothe because their emotional connection and whatever it is, love, was almost not nil, right? So understanding that the anxious preoccupied individual has this feeling of rejection. They always feel like they were rejected by their parents somehow. They felt the biggest thing, the fear of abandonment, and they never felt good enough, because they felt that if they weren't worthy enough of really being, for you to give all the love you had to them. So they always felt like something was missing. And so when that parent or caregiver came along, they didn't know when they'll see them again, so they would be very clingy and not want to let go. And these are the kids you'll see crying a lot when put down somewhere, right? Sometimes for a long, long time, for until the parent picked them up again. So with that in mind, some of the questions you're going to want to ask yourself when dating someone with this attachment style, right? And it will take a little time for you to kind of get to know if this person is someone with an attachment style of the anxious preoccupied, because at the beginning of a relationship, they could very easily be mistaken for someone with a fearful avoidant attachment style, depending on the attachment style of the other partner. Because the person with a fearful attachment style also has the anxious preoccupied attachment side of them, and also the dismissive attachment side of them. So that's a very complicated attachment style to have. Okay, so some of the questions you'll ask yourself, because your partner can't answer that for you. You have to know for sure, and I always say, guys, like I did in the first video, that I believe this can only be, you can only do this really well when you are a secure individual. Because a dismissive avoidant, a dismissive might be able to do this too, because they're so disconnected from their emotional thing. So it's easy for them to do this, to choose and decide if this is someone they can, be in relationship with. But at some level, the dismissive avoidant attachment style is always attracted to the anxious, because they have a side of them that they never had. Because anxious preoccupied attachment style is very loving and giving and are really emotionally open, whereas the dismissive never experience that. So they connect to the anxious because they just never had that, and they crave that part of a relationship, right? Even though it doesn't work. So one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is that, because the anxious preoccupied is usually accused of being very clingy and needy, you have to, and they do this in different ways. For example, if they call or text, what will happen is that if their partner does not respond in a time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, no, after an hour, they start to get really anxious, and will be texting back and forth or getting angry. Why is this person not responding to me? Whatever it might be. And so are you comfortable? The first question is, are you comfortable with being on call 24/7, 365 days a year? Because this person is going to want to be really close to you, know everything, everywhere that you're at. So they want, because they feel connected to you. It's not necessarily because they need to know where you are and all that. It is more to keep them from being anxious, because the fact that you're unavailable is what causes that anxiety. And so you have to know if you're a person who can calm that anxiety, or is this something that's just going to piss you off pretty much all the time. You have to be there and then kind of give an excuse or give some reasoning why it is that you weren't available, right? Which, or kind of soothe them, because what the anxious preoccupied is looking for when they do that, back-to-back texting and all of that calling or whatever it is, trying to contact you, is the way they want you to soothe them, because they never learned to soothe themselves, as I mentioned earlier. They never learned to soothe themselves, they're always looking to their partner to soothe them. All right, and so you have to ask yourself, are you comfortable with being on call, pretty much available 24/7? Anytime they call, you pick up the phone or you call them in a couple of minutes, because that's really not possible, and so that's going to cause some problem. But are you comfortable with doing that? Because, as I said, someone with a secure attachment style will be able to tolerate this, because when they go all crazy, which is the anxious preoccupied, and start texting back, they're able to calm them and say, honey, I was in a meeting. You know that I love you, and it's, it has to be something why I don't respond to you, a reason why I don't respond to you. So, and they're able to sit there with that person to calm them down. But not somebody with the dismissive is not going to do that, because they're probably just like, no, right? But you have to be very honest with yourselves to see if this is someone that you can actually be with long term. The next thing is, are you easily offended? Are you offended by, because sometimes when you don't give the anxious preoccupied what they need, for example, appease them, they're going to want to they're going to kind of want to almost hit back at you in some way. And so it can be in form of criticism, it can be in the form of flirting with somebody when you're with them, it can be the form of try to make you feel jealous, or they may also, sometimes it will be like kind of a wanting you to kind of validate that you really care for them, and so they will threaten to leave and do things like that, right? And all of these things are not well thought out by the individual, because they're always acting from a place of anxiety, and a lot of them just cannot help it because they've never worked on themselves to really kind of maintain control of themselves in an emotion, when there are things that happen in their lives. They've just never done that. They've just acted from the subconscious belief that you're going to abandon them, you're being rejected, and all those different core wounds and traumas that they had from their childhood. The next question you may want to ask yourself is are you able to answer like random questions about, really often, because they'll be asking you, where are you, what do you do that, just many questions when they want to. And all of it, again, guys, is to self-soothe. They want to really make sure that you're there with them. You're not going to leave them because of this fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. This is all to do, to be able to feel safe again. They want to feel safe again, so they're asking you all these questions, hoping that you're going to validate, and that you're there for them. There's nobody else. All of that sort of stuff. But this can become really tiresome for another person to really have to do all the time. So you have to ask yourself questions like that. Now, the good thing about this, guys, is even with, say for example, because as I said, only somebody with, maybe I shouldn't say only, but the highest, the chance of success is with somebody with who is secure. And this person have to be really strong to really put up with all of this and still be able to maintain that love for that person. So, but the good thing about it is that when someone is secure with an attachment style like the anxious preoccupied, the more that person is able to show them that they're not leaving them, they love them, and the more that they can trust that they'll be there for them, the less anxious they get. So in a way, the secure attachment style, when with an anxious person, and if the secure is ready to put up with all that stuff because they're more emotionally capable of doing it, the anxious person will get less anxious and become more secure in that relationship. Now, if they go to another relationship with somebody else who they can't trust and they feel that will just leave at any time, they're going to get anxious again unless they work on themselves. Okay, so the other thing is, the other question you may want to ask yourself is, are you able to constantly be kind of like appeasing this person and kind of soothing this person? That's kind of going to be your responsibility, especially for the first couple of years, if you can put up with that, to make them feel like they can really trust you. Because as I say, after that, they will come to trust you and not be so anxious and ask all these questions because they now trust you, right? The other question you may have to ask yourself is, can you be with someone who is very sensitive? Because someone with the anxious preoccupied can be quite sensitive to body changes in body language, micro expressions that might indicate that you might leave them or you might be losing interest in them. And so what happens is that because and the thing about it is that they read into everything. These individuals will read into everything, and usually the reading is not positive. It's usually negative. So they're building these stories around your behavior, your lack of doing something, or your micro expressions that might make them feel that you're going to reject them or leave them. They read into that and make their own stories around that. And they expect you, this is the part, guys, they expect you to read their minds. It's like if you're with them long enough, they feel that you should know them so well that you can read their mind and tell and understand why they're not speaking to you or why they're upset with you for whatever reason. They won't come out and say it to you. They will just kind of be very pouty and miserable and, you know, kind of very cold and thing, which is not usual for an anxious preoccupied. These are not cold individuals, right? So when they're cold and you know something is wrong, now they expect you to read their minds pretty much, right? So this is something, are you able to do that, right? The next question you may want to ask yourself is, do you feel like you can always be there to regulate your partner's feelings and boost their ego, boost their self-worth, and boost their self-image, you know, whatever it is that you need to do that? And you have to ask this question because, guys, as I always say, you can never change or fix your partner. You cannot do that. The partner has to recognize that there's something that needs repairing and need fixing and need handling, and then work on doing that themselves. So yes, you might be there, but you might get tired of it. It can be very tiresome. So you have to ask yourself these questions, guys. If you're able and if you're looking to continue a relationship, when you're dating and you find this out and you still decide you want to be in a relationship with this person, you have to ask these questions and make that decision before you get too serious. All right, so this is Christine, guys, your relationship and mindset mastery doctor and your leverage for change. What I will come up with next is really about some of the things that how the person with the anxious preoccupied attachment style can kind of know with their partner. Well, I'll do that later on because that is going to be kind of following the same scenario as the dismissive that I did earlier. All right, this is Christine. Just keep growing, guys, and please, if you find some value in this, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Liking it really helps me to kind of helps my channel, so I would appreciate that. And until next time, guys, please don't stop growing. Take care now.